see her, my breathing stops. When I touch her, I shiver. Her smile, it seduces me. She won't stay still. She eludes me. I can't have her. All she wants is a moment for herself. A moment of intense wellness.
Venti Venti, the new creation by Gessi.
The Venti Venti collection was born in a particular historical moment in which we need to return to dreaming, to recover the taste for the pleasure of beauty, of that which makes life and our spaces full of what pleases the sight as much as the personality and the heart. The recognition of the market pushes us to continuous challenges in proposing creations adapted to the moments and eras of our lives. When we dream of the future, the creative capacity of the mind transforms the positive emotions we experience into a real experience. The body receives the signals of these emotions as if the event had already occurred, generating well-being. The beauty of places, environments and details should bring us into this condition. Venti Venti was inspired by our responsibility to make the most personal environment more and more fascinating. Designed by the humanist architect Lazzaro Rosa Violan, created by the craftsmanship of our people who have made an art out of attention to detail. An experience is reborn, a lifestyle which will contribute to improving the quality of life of people who believe in us.
What we are experiencing is undoubtedly a very special moment in history. We all have a great need to rediscover the taste of freedom, the pleasure of beauty, or simply the carefree spirit of a better life, better than the one we are currently experiencing. It is no coincidence that our company is always conscious of and inspired by what happens around it, both to anticipate new trends and interpret new visions. At Gessi, our research has always extended into worlds that cut across our sector before focusing on the creation and design of a design object. But what are we doing today? Today we are doing much more. And you know why? Because we have gone back exactly 100 years. We have felt the need to confront those who were able to emerge from the dark period of a world conflict and a pandemic called the Spanish flu. And it was precisely the reaction to these enormous collective wounds that gave rise to an extraordinary era. The era of the so-called Roaring Years, the Golden Years, the era in which society was able to react with great strength and vehemence, looking to the future with great joy and enthusiasm. In short, years in which the taste for the full enjoyment of life, for beauty, for sophistication, redefined the lifestyles of men and women at that time. Not only that, but it also redefined the thinking in the world of culture, art, design, and, why not, discovery through the great train journeys like the Orient Express or the great ship crossings with the first cruises. In short, a very strong reaction was also marked by the emancipation of the female world. The woman who threw away the classic Victorian full-length dress and found new stimuli and new dreams in Coco Chanel's collections. And it is precisely the beneficial power of dreams that stimulates Gessi to create a collection that can reinterpret, recover the playful spirit of those years, the sense of style, the attention to refined detail in the 20s. In short, something that we like to define as eclectic. But before we delve into the collection, Let's go back to relive those wonderful 20s and do it with someone who is much more of an expert than us. This is Paolo Di Paolo, a writer, journalist, and playwright. He has collaborated with important national newspapers such as Repubblica, but above all, he has written an evocative book about that era, a book entitled Waking Up in the 1920s. Let's hear what he has to say.
È abbastanza affascinante.
It's rather fascinating to wonder how the 20s of today may be in some way linked with the 20s from the last century.
Svegliarsi
Waking up in a different time, trying to recover from trauma can produce a very specific set of emotional resources that are sometimes, I would say, spectacular. Because there is a surge, a need, a will to go back to life, clinging to life as if it was before, but at the same time creating a brand new kind of life, right? And I believe that the key word for the first 20s, maybe for our 20s as well, but most of all for the 20s of the last century, is intensity. Because you're now able to clearly see through the blur that was caused by the trauma. Mourning, catastrophes, historical tragedies generate a violent emotional backlash. But in order to be able to brave the storm, you need to see the water, the sky, other people. You need to somehow feel the vibrations flowing from the world around you. Writers such as Hemingway, Virginia Woolf, in particular writers such as Francis Scott Fitzgerald, have told us that about the 20s and the desire to fall in love with things again. Because the feeling you get when you study the 20s of the last century is that someone is raising a glass, a toast. Right then, everybody suddenly realizes that existence can still be enjoyed. Because existence is fragile, vulnerable, and when you think about it, short. You then realize that maybe we need to stretch these brief moments and live through them as if they were a decade. I believe that this society, as it suddenly finds itself enjoying life, is trying to forget and moreover overcome the past, right? A society which is trying to picture a present which is also a window to a possible future. Being surrounded by a beautiful world, a natural world, but also a world that has been built, an artificial world, was fundamental in the 20s of the last century. Art Deco, in this sense, intended as design projects, urban architecture projects, or interior design, is to all effects a further workshop. It represents some sort of further workshop, a workshop whose task is to retrieve a sense of well-being that was lost, a well-being that has now been recovered. Because you need to wake up in a world not only made of shadows, but sparks of beauty. And that brings us to the precision and attention to details that we find, for instance, in Art Deco designs. A precision that's almost spasmodic, isn't it? As if we're trying to give the world, at least to pieces of our world, a chance to live fully, indulged by the aesthetic luxury we have surrounded ourselves with.
Di Paolo's preface introduces us, or rather makes us understand how we have interpreted the Venti Venti project, the Venti Venti collection. We needed an artist who was not only akin to that world, but who could also best interpret Gessi's vision and thought in that manner. We found him in a Spanish artist, a designer, an architect. His name is Lázaro Rosario Violan. He has a studio in Barcelona with more than 120 interior designers, and his style could be defined as fresh, innovative, eclectic, with many references to Art Deco. He likes to define himself as a painter lending himself to design, but above all as an artist who creates atmospheres rather than spaces. Let's hear what he has to say.
tengo una formación básicamente de pintor y de artista. El principio para abordar el proyecto de Gessi precisamente se basa en el arte. Queríamos hacer una conexión del arte y la naturaleza, pero al fin y al cabo ese es el origen del diseño, ¿no? Desde pequeño ya me inculcaron el gusto por las artes y paralelamente a mi carrera de artista estudié arquitectura. Y esta es un poco, yo creo que el resultado del trabajo que yo hago es precisamente esa simbiosis, ¿no? de estos dos, digamos, puntos de vista sobre el diseño. O sea, yo creo que los objetos tienen que contar historias, ¿no? Nunca pensamos en un producto solamente para lucimiento de diseño. Yo creo que las cosas tienen que tener un porqué. Cuando abordamos el proyecto para Gessi, tomamos 2 o 3 vertientes, pero yo creo que la que a mí me parecía más interesante era, yo me quería inspirar en la naturaleza. Esto es un poco lo que pasó con los años 20. O sea, los años 20, donde la arquitectura de golpe, o sea, da un cambio radical. O sea, de golpe aparece la línea recta prácticamente como base, ¿no? Como base para todas las formas, incluso llega hasta el mundo de la moda, ¿no? El Deco tuvo la virtud de ser un estilo muy expansivo, ¿sabes? La verdad es que yo creo que nunca en la historia se había dado un momento tan rico y tan rápido de propagación de un estilo, y el Deco fue así, fue radical. Todo este preciosismo, esto es un poco lo que hemos querido un poco plasmar en la colección. Por supuesto los 20, pero bueno, los 20, ahora se habla de un nuevo renacimiento cultural, estético, pero sí que es verdad que después de todos estos año y medio o tantos meses como de sequía, esto va a ser un renacimiento total. Y esperemos que esta explosión de alegría y de forma influya en la acogida de esta colección, ¿no? Que me parece que aparte es una pieza muy polivalente, tiene tantos matices que yo creo que encaja en cualquier tipo de ambiente arquitectónico. El baño ha pasado de ser la hermana pequeña de la casa a ser el centro de la casa. Yo creo que hay zonas de la casa que la gente las tenía como subsidiarias, eran como secundarias. El baño era como un sitio, casi como una obligación. Yo creo que ahora el baño es el espacio donde uno se siente a gusto. O sea, yo creo que ahora el cuidado por los cuartos de baño es básico. O sea, yo creo que no hay una casa, y hacemos muchas, en las que la pieza de baño no sea clave. Para mí ya todo es un todo. O sea, ya el baño no es un sitio secundario. La suerte de haber visitado la fábrica de Gessi en su momento, en el momento adecuado, fue importantísimo. O sea, nosotros seguramente hubiéramos abordado el proyecto de otra manera, pero la sorpresa, y esto es una realidad, o sea, para mí visitar Gessi fue, o sea, esa fantasía que tiene todo diseñador de ver que existe alguien o una empresa o un equipo de gente que es capaz de sintonizar la tecnología, la artesanía y el arte en un objeto. Y esto lo hemos vivido en Gessi.
The experience that we are proposing you today will let us get into 2020's world, the new Gessi collection, discovering all its distinct aspects and its real essence. We will take a journey together back to the past in order to enjoy all the positive vibes of the 1920s and bring them back to our everyday life. At the same time, we will visit amazing cities all over the world, collecting all ideas, suggestions that will arise by observing the innovative and pure character of 2020. We start this magic journey together towards space and time by entering the heart of the city of Milan, where we are hosted into a rich and sophisticated building of the Milan bourgeoisie of the 1900s. Here we can find the typical decorative features of Deco style that are luxurious but also solemn, and which convey a timeless elegance typically Milanese. In such a setting, we couldn't avoid presenting you our leading element, the high basin mixer, together with its matching wash basin. The high basin mixer is the starting point for the development of the entire collection. The top basin mixer is really iconic, with the handle that looks like an industrial valve and the characteristic lining decoration. And these are features that we will meet on every article of our collection that is marked by soft shapes but also very meticulous details in a succession of industrial and artisanal manufacturing. The finish here is a brushed warm bronze that is elegant but also natural and conveys a non-treated aspect to the objects, but still maintaining the warmth of the bronze nuances. And now follow me for our next stop together. We move now to the magic city of Paris in a setting of pure well-being and relaxation. It's a really trademark corner where the white and the black colors dominate, though expressing a sophisticated elegance. We can find a space for her and for him on the two sides and a majestic marble bathtub in the center that anticipates a semicircular niche where a very elegant and exclusive private wellness area is revealed. We can find the 5 exit shower mixers, the shower head, the waterfall spout and a freestanding bathtub, which are elements that we will find more in details later on. In this setting, we can also find a very iconic element of our collection, that is the 3-hole basin mixer. A very interesting news in the world of Gessi, because it has a very unique low spout and finely decorated flange. But this step has a great particularity, the fact that the movement of the pop-up lever is controlled by a switch that is positioned right on the top of the tap itself. And this is a really original feature that has never been seen before in our collections. We like to see it as a sort of magic push button that opens up the world of 2020. But the adjective that better describes the object is eclectic. In fact, it has been designed by matching a mix of styles which allow it to be perfectly integrated into any context. The finish that we have chosen here is the black metal, because it has an innate ability to dress the classic in a contemporary way by making it a symbol of elegance with its timeless and pure non-color. Now, come with me once again. We are back in Europe now, where we silently slip into a studio in Madrid. Here, the neat definition among spaces is dimming slowly until it disappears completely. The lavabo mixer, in fact, is posed on a writing desk along with books, magazines and pens. And at its side, we can find a bookshelf where books are stocked together with a towel and toilet accessories. Gold and warm nuances surround the whole setting that almost becomes a sort of big private box, safe and embracing. But if we move a little bit deeper, we can find a box inside of the box that reveals a unique and innovative private wellness, with the introduction of the new Hi-Fi Eclectic, a novelty in the world of the private wellness. And here, our attention is drawn to the new sliding rail, with its extraordinary lever that reminds us of an industrial valve. This is represented in a finish that is the Pras PVD, a dominant finish in the last 5 years, because it has a vintage touch that gets close to the warmer tones of the classic gold and perfectly matches with luxury and classical context, but still remains distant from them thanks to its sophisticated and contemporary soul. Now we will take a very short trip together and move to the city of London. And finally, here we are, and we dive into the dynamic and eclectic life of the city of the 1900s, with a pleasant walk among the barber shop, the shoe blacks, the cafes, and the typical department stores. The shower glass on my back is created on the model of a big shop window, where we seem to catch sight of men and women walking and chatting. In this very eclectic and stimulating context, we present you the three-hole basin mixer with a swan neck spout that is characterized by the piping on the edge, the same decorative element that we have encountered on the shower head, as well as the iconic line texture on the body. The aged bronze, with its metallic and vintage touch, is able to convey a sense of warmth and richness. And now, stay ready, because on this unusual journey of ours, we move again very far away to reach Shanghai. Oh, I really love Shanghai. We breathe its energy and mundanity. It's a complex style where the meeting between two separate universes come to light. Far Eastern culture encountered and is made richer by the influence of the West, and rigorous and vivid decoration melded together. The solemn marble bathtub is enhanced by the freestanding bath mixer that is a breaking element in the context and shows all the 5 distinctive features of 2020 that we have discovered so far. They are the line decoration, the iconic lever, the decorated flange, the decorative bottom, and the piping. The nickel here is the new PVD finish that represents the fundamental nuance of 2020, as it has been designed and created ad hoc for this collection. Reminiscent of a warmer ancestor of chrome, the nickel establishes a bond among past and present and holds a very evocative power. And now let's get back to where we started, so let's get back to Italy. We have now reached the last stop of our journey over space and time, and are back to Italy. Rome welcomes us in a setting that is dominated by impressive marbles and iron glass walls. A play of concentric circles alternates to geometric elements, driving the attention to the private wellness. We find the same circular decorations of the floor also on the freestanding basin mixer. Here, the wall-mounted 2-hole basin mixers look like sculptures that come out from the wall, with their square spouts. The controls are manufactured in the finest details, which highlights the fact that the material is not modeled, but it's removed in order to obtain the desired shapes. The wash basins are enriched by the presence of what we called the necessaries in all their features. The brushed copper finish here perfectly matches the last setting and represents a very modern nuance that is able to link colder and warmer materials and act as a sort of bridge among old and new. Our magic and evocative journey to discover 2020 is now over. We really hope that we helped you bring back some of the positive vibes and good inspirations that were typical of the 1920s. For sure, we come back home with a new form of awareness. In fact, we do not necessarily have to categorize a style or a collection in order to understand it, in order to appreciate it. Quite often, actually, it's diversity, the mix of elements, the eclecticism, the incapability of giving a clear definition that represents the real richness and the success of a form of art. But after all, this is exactly what 2020 represents. We want it to be an instrument to re-experience the majesty of the roaring 20s of the 1900s, but still enjoying our present.
We have told you a story, a true story. To do so, we have gone back 100 years. We have told you our vision, our thinking. We brought in a writer who could guide us on this wonderful journey. We heard from an artist with whom we shared a project path, and then we saw how we like to carry it out with great passion. with great competence and with great professionalism. But what is left for us to do about the Venti Venti collection? Perhaps nothing more than to invite you to touch it with your own hands. We look forward to seeing you.